For most of the past decade, a Samsung Galaxy S has been the default choice for most of us who don't want an iPhone. In part, that's a consequence of Samsung's colossal marketing budget and retail dominance here in the West, but equally, Samsung didn't get to where it is by making crappy phones. The recent Galaxy S pedigree is one of consistent, predictable brilliance, and in its 10th anniversary year, the king of the Android world continues to reign supreme. To quickly recap, the Galaxy S10 series is in fact made up of 4 phones. The Galaxy S10, S10e and S10 Plus you can buy right now, as well as a bigger, slightly upgraded 5G version debuting in some countries later in the year. In this review I'm going to concentrate on the top model most of us will be considering, the S10 Plus. Most of this review applies to the standard S10 too. Across all 3 models though, you'll witness the latest evolution of the design language Samsung started way back with the Galaxy S6. Lustrous metal and shimmering glass. Each colour has its own slightly iridescent hue, and the aluminium sidewalls are now polished into an ostentatious mirror finish. This year's Samsung flagship is a touch more angular and a lot shinier than last year's models. It's a little easier to one-hand as a result, though still very slippery a lot of the time. Which is why you may want to pick up a skin from this video's sponsor, Dbrand. Not only do Dbrand's high-quality device skins give your S10 a unique look, but they'll also go a long way towards making sure it doesn't fly out of your hand when you're trying to take a photo or tap out a message. I'm a big fan of Dbrand's concrete and bamboo finishes that you see here, which really change up the in-hand feel, but these guys have a ton of different textures and colours in skins for all 3 Galaxy S10 models. Hit the link in the description to take a closer look. In any case, truth be told, the back of the S10 isn't all that different from the back of a million other Android phones. Aside from a bit of branding, the only thing that stands out is this new triple camera panel. That's because the fingerprint scanner now lives in the display around the front. Oh, and about that display. The 6.4-inch screen of the S10 Plus fills out more of the front surface than ever before, with this little pill-shaped cutout there for the dual selfie cameras. On the smaller S10s, you get just one hole-punch cutout for a single selfie shooter. It's a sign of how refined and uncontroversial the rest of the S10's design is that this one element has some people up in arms. Samsung stock wallpapers do a good job of hiding it, but honestly, even when I'm in a regular app, I have a hard time caring about the screen cutout. It's there, I can deal with it, and in my time with the phone I found it less distracting than most of the notch-based alternatives. What the cutout provides is the impression of a larger screen area with virtually no noticeable borders, to the point where the first generation Infinity displays seem dated by comparison. Obviously display quality has always been a strength for Samsung, and I'm sure exactly no one will be surprised to see that the S10 Plus's screen walks away with top marks from specialist reviewer DisplayMate. These days, a best-in-class screen is just par for the course for a new Samsung flagship. I have been truly impressed with this phone's display though, particularly under the very bright sunshine here in Barcelona, and that's me personally coming from a Galaxy Note 9 which already had a phenomenal screen. Flagship phones have been basically fast enough for the past couple years now. Nevertheless, Samsung layers on the upgrades in its S10 models. In both the S10 and the S10 Plus, you get 8GB of RAM plus 128GB of storage, a welcome upgrade considering the base model S9 had only 4 plus 64. Number crunching power is provided by either Qualcomm's Snapdragon 855, which I've been using here in this US model of the Galaxy S10 Plus, or Samsung's own Exynos 9820 overseas. Both chips are lightning quick on Android 9 Pie, though with one disappointing difference that we'll get to later in this review. An equally important part of this phone's hardware is the handful of features that stand as the antithesis of the iPhone. The S10 Plus still has a headphone jack and removable storage, and in Europe and Asia optional dual SIM support if you buy unlocked. In fact, these days the inclusion of a fingerprint scanner at all is kind of a rebuff of Apple. The S10 and S10 Plus include a new ultrasonic in-screen fingerprint scanner from Qualcomm that's a little better than the previous generation of optical scanners, but honestly still far from perfect. It's slower and less reliable than the capacitive sensors of the S9 and Note 9, requires more pressure on the screen to use, and is probably the phone's biggest hardware weakness overall. It's a good thing Face Unlock is also supported and works pretty reliably. So neither of these unlock features is 100% perfect, but it is good to have options. Not only has Samsung's hardware undergone its biggest transformation in 2 years, the software has also seen a major overhaul. We got a preview of the Galaxy S10 software with the Android Pie updates on the Galaxy S9 and Note 9, and the S10 itself ships with version 1.1 of Samsung's One UI, also based on Android Pie. One UI includes a bunch of changes designed to reflect the nature of modern smartphones and to help with one-handed use on these super tall handsets. At the same time, there are some purely cosmetic changes that move us away from the sci-fi polygonal aesthetic of the old Samsung Experience 9. Icons and menus are big, blocky, chunky, rounded, and colourful. The layout of many of Samsung's own apps has also been changed to move important controls down to the bottom of the screen for easier reachability, while at the same time there's this overscroll animation that fills out the top part of the screen and lets you reach menu items at the top more easily. Samsung also has its own system-level night mode toggle now, which you can either set on a timer or use permanently. Samsung has finally gotten on board with digital well-being too, with its own version of Google's screen time management feature. You can track which apps you're using and limit your overall time or time within specific apps. Plus, if you want to take advantage of the entirety of that 6.4-inch display, Samsung has a new full-screen gesture mode that lets you swipe up from where the on-screen keys would normally be. For most of my time with the S10 Plus though, I've kept with the good old-fashioned on-screen buttons. One UI as a whole is a bit more approachable than Samsung's earlier software, but it still feels like you're using a Samsung phone, right down to some of the animations and the haptics, and even the occasional UI blunder like the folder view here, which is bafflingly hard to reach with only one hand. Of course, Samsung's Bixby Assistant returns too, as well as Bixby Home getting a bit of a visual overhaul. Bixby Routines now lets you program things to happen automatically based on the time of day, the location, battery level, and a bunch of other criteria. That's on top of everything else that Bixby could already do, like using Bixby Vision to find information on your surroundings. But if you're not a fan of Bixby, and I know that applies to a lot of people, then finally a single press of the Bixby button can now be remapped to do other more useful things. Honestly, One UI is about the best we could have hoped for from Samsung's software in 2019. Despite a few visual quirks, One UI is mature, speedy, and generally good looking. This is the first Samsung review where I've had basically no software complaints, and that's no small achievement for the company. One of the big upgrades you're probably going to see coming from an older Galaxy is the S10's new triple camera setup. Unlike last year, both the regular and the Plus models have the same 3 rear cameras. There's an upgraded version of the 12-megapixel sensor from the S9 with the same f1.5 to 2.4 variable aperture, and that's paired with a 2x telephoto, also at 12 megapixels, and a new 16-megapixel ultra-wide camera, the first in a Samsung flagship. All 3 cameras also benefit from Samsung's AI scene enhancement from last year's phones, which now comes with a couple of new features. Best shot detection can help you figure out the best framing for your photo, though I found this gave me very mixed results. And there's also a new night mode, well, sort of. We'll get to that one later. The super slow-mo feature from the S9 gets a modest upgrade too. It's still 960 frames per second and 720p, but the duration is now doubled to a more generous 0.4 seconds. You will still need plenty of natural light to use this mode, however. To be honest though, the main and telephoto cameras are pretty minor upgrades compared to last year's Galaxies. I've seen subtle improvements in exposure and dynamic range compared to the Note 9 I've been using recently, but you really have to pixel peep hard to see the difference. More than either the main or the telephoto, the real reason to get excited about photography on the S10 is that new ultra-wide camera. I've enjoyed cameras like this on LG and Huawei phones over the years, but I think Samsung's version is the most versatile I've ever used. It even holds up remarkably well in low light, better than either the LG V40 or Huawei Mate 20 Pro's wide-angle cameras. Dynamic range and color clarity is exceptional, and you get a field of view that's just wide enough to shoot dramatic shots without distortion starting to creep in. In fact, wide-angle video on the S10 Plus might be my favourite part of the entire camera experience. The main difference compared to ultra-wide cameras in other phones isn't the image quality alone, though that is impressive. It's how well Samsung's image stabilization works even with this incredibly vast viewport, and even in extremely challenging lighting like shooting directly into the sun here. No other phone camera does this better. That said, I did still run into a little bit of performance wonk when quickly changing between the 3 rear cameras, particularly in video mode. Around front, the S10 Plus is differentiated by its twin selfie camera setup, which gives you an optional wider view while also helping with depth calculation in some of the front-facing portrait effects. The extra field of view isn't as wide as the Pixel 3's, and generally I found this wasn't all that useful compared to shooting with the wide-angle front camera on the Pixel. While we're talking portrait effects, by the way, Samsung's live focus mode is back and a little bit more reliable than in older Galaxy phones. Plus, it's been upgraded with some neat visual effects like color pop and this funky crash zoom effect. It's classic Instagram fodder for sure, but also a pretty fun addition to complement the straight-up portrait mode. So we've established the Galaxy S10 has excellent cameras, but as good as they are, there is one big thing missing from the equation. That's a top-tier, dedicated low-light mode. The S10 has a feature called Bright Night that activates automatically in darker scenes, but this isn't even in the same league as the champion of low-light that is Google's Night Sight mode. Difference is the Pixel 3's camera trades speed for imaging excellence, with Samsung it's the reverse. For the most part, the results on the S10 Plus are perfectly fine, really good even, in low-light conditions. But for a phone this expensive, they're lacking that jaw-dropping star quality that you get from, say, a Pixel 3 or a Huawei P20 Pro. Anyway, let's round out by talking battery performance. The S10 Plus boasts a major upgrade in capacity compared to the S8 and S9, with 4100 mAh built in, even more than last year's Galaxy Note 9. And the Snapdragon 855 version I've been using has given me epic longevity. It's at that magic 5 to 6 hour screen on time mark across a full day that means that whatever I'm doing, I don't need to worry about my phone dying. I know with confidence that it's going to last well into the evening and perhaps even beyond. What's a little disappointing is that even though Samsung's wireless charging spec is faster than ever on the Galaxy S10, it still lags behind Huawei, OnePlus and other Chinese brands on wired charging speeds. With such a large battery, that's a downside should you ever run into the need for a midday refill. Plus, although the Snapdragon Galaxy S10 has been delivering great battery life for me, we're hearing mixed results from other members of the Android Central team who have the Exynos version. That's compounded by reports that the Exynos models also score lower in synthetic benchmarks. We'll circle back on performance on the Exynos models in a future video. So the unavoidable question with any new Samsung flagship is whether it's the best Android phone you can buy right now. For the Galaxy S10 Plus I've used, I think undoubtedly the answer is yes. It's easy to get drawn into how one or two phones can beat it in one or two areas, but the overall package, the consistent quality across everything this phone does, is where Samsung wins. That makes the Galaxy S10 series an easy pick for just about everyone. It is predictably brilliant, it is the safe choice once again, and this year that safe choice is better than ever before. That's going to wrap up our Galaxy S10 Plus video review. Thanks again to dbrand for sponsoring this video. Hit the link in the description to check out their line of skins for all three Galaxy S10 models. Thanks of course to all of you for watching, and remember to subscribe to see more reviews like this one. That's it for now, I'll see all of you in the future.